evening and welcome to the Wednesday, February 25th, 2026 meeting of the Penfield Town Board. Tonight is a work session. I hereby call the meeting to order. And Councilmember Getz, will you please lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
Yes, I will. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, do I have a motion to approve the minutes from the January 28th, 2026 meeting?
Supervisor, I would like to make a motion to approve them, but I have one small modification, and that's under the adjournment, when we talked about Supervisor Berry motion to enter executive session at 9:19 p.m., that we add a reason for moving that into executive session, which I believe was a property.
Yeah, so I think that could be under Public Officers Law, Section 105, 1H, which is the proposed acquisition, sale, or lease of real property. And so just to add that line would be sufficient.
I apologize for not catching that earlier.
Thank you.
Okay, do I have a second?
I'll second that as amended.
All right, will you call the roll?
Barry.
Aye.
Dean.
Aye.
Getz.
Aye.
Lang.
Aye.
Teglash.
Aye.
All right, now I will turn it over to Mark Valentine to introduce our guest.
Thank you, Mr. Supervisor. I'll invite Evan Schutt up. So he's approached me about doing some improvements on some property he and his family own on the north side of Plank Road, so across from where their farm market is. We have a conservation easement that the town purchased many years ago in that area, so that's why it's coming back under the town board's purview and review. I've reviewed it with council, but he thought it would be good to come back before the board. So we have several easements around town. We have some on other farm properties that we've done similar things with. Past boards have, looked at it and been supportive, if it's under ag and markets law and everything else. So can share more about the detail of that and what and why, but I'll turn it over to Evan and let him kind of share what he's thinking about doing.
Thank you. I appreciate you guys having me. So, as you know, agriculture has kind of shifted a little bit, and just like Penfield shifted. And at the time, we are just looking to continue to stay relevant. That's really what we're looking to do. And when I approach you with these ideas, it doesn't mean that they're going to happen right away. It doesn't mean that I'm just looking for feedback and what our family is able to do on this piece of property as we continue to grow. I thought we'd start here because I don't want to meet with anyone and waste anyone's time, right? If I go down this road and then I come to Penfield and it just seems like it's a lost cause. So as we meet, I just want you to know I'm open for ideas. I'm open, to hear feedback, and we can go from there. So currently, we have been expanding. We're talking about our farm side. This is just an aerial view. I wish I could have blown it up a little bit bigger. And right in the center, you're going to kind of notice you're going to see two white tents if you look in the middle. And we're looking to make, and I'm not 100% sure, those two white tents, I'm looking to eventually, the reason why I'm approaching you is to build some pavilions, and also maybe like a natural, more looking farm-like playground structure. As time and farming's gone on, we have invited more and more families onto our farm. I'm not going to lie, since I've taken over, compared to my father was a pure farmer, where we are now more in the business of having families come in and enjoy the farm experience. We are a working farm, though. We are still harvesting apples, we're still doing cherries, we're still doing raspberries, but in order for us on 50 acres to stay profitable and relevant, we needed young families to come in and enjoy the experience. We never had you pick apples before I took over, and now we do. And now we never had we never had tours for school-age kids. Now we do. The pavilions would provide a way of, constantly schools are asking us, can we eat lunch on your property? And I'm constantly telling them, no. We just don't have the space, and we're looking to provide able to allow schools to be able to do that. It also will be a nice way for families as they're U-picking to get out of the sun at times, because we do have cherries in the middle of July. And then the playgrounds are, honestly, I'm looking to expand more into having maybe possibly birthday parties into the future, but connecting it with agriculture. Like, your birthday party involves picking, and it involves wagon rides, it involves tours, it involves learning how it all comes together. And it sounds weird to say that kids would want to do that, but the amount of times that we've been approached is astronomical, and I continually turn people away because we do not have the structure in place yet, and we might never. But this is where we're starting. This is what we're looking to do. We are, if you go to the top part, it's not going to replace any trees. It's not going to replace any farming. It's going to be in areas. And when you see those tents in the right-hand side, I'm going to be upfront, and obviously if this even goes forward, before we did anything, we'd meet again. I think that's where they're going to go, but I also want to meet with someone about the land and you know what I mean, and know. The only other possible areas, if you look in the middle towards the bottom section, that big green open area, we have a U-cut flower field there, and it would be nice to add them there as well. But again, that all also depends on drainage and filling of some of the land. And I'm not trying to, that's where eventually I would, if it ever happens, to put the playground, because it also is the farthest away from, I'm not trying to be this way, the trees and tractors and things of that nature, because we are still farming every single day. I mean, I had people out trimming today, and it doesn't matter the temperature, we're constantly farming every single day. So that green space that's towards the bottom and where you see the tents, those are the areas that I'm thinking about. But again, I would have to meet with contractors to see what the grade of the land is. So I'm not trying to put anything over. Obviously, I would come back and talk to you about it.
Mark, where is as far as the easement and the different ways of
Yeah, we kind of
characterizing
set
the
a
easement
5-acre
areas?
farmstead area over, and that's where the tents are now. So previous board, granted authorization for the tents that are out there. Obviously, you kind of wanted to see if the U-pick worked and
Yeah.
whether that made sense. That also granted the access drive that is in there now, in a parking area that's on that side. So this is kind of the next step in that.
Yeah, we do have 2 event tents that the town approved that people check in for U-pick. We're just looking for, and last year one of them got caught in the wind and ripped in half, and so we're just looking for a little bit more permanent structures to provide this for people.
And are you thinking of 2 pavilions, or are you not too sure yet? How many are you?
I'm honestly thinking between 2 and 3, but again, I'm going to be really upfront with you. Cost is going to matter. If someone comes back and tells me a pavilion is X amount of dollars and I can only afford one, then I can only afford one, if that makes sense. But I would ideally, I would like one for the U-pick area, which is the middle tent right by the parking lot, and then I would like 2. So if we had, because we constantly give tours to multiple classrooms at one time, so each classroom could have a pavilion to eat their lunches at. So one would be more of a structure for people to check in and be able to do things there, and then the other 2 structures would be more for the classes or the people.
And we do have, sorry, go ahead.
Would you be moving the tents to another location?
No, I would get rid of the tents, and everyone that works for me would love me immensely for that.
And I say we do have similar examples at other properties we own conservation easements over. So we've got the Wickham Farms. So in the back, they've installed some shade structures. They've got U-pick flowers in the back. So something similar. So there's quite a few structures that was granted by previous board, as well as Sunscape Farms on Creek Street. And you can see they've got several growing greenhouses, obviously the farm market there. So as long as it's farm-related, ag-related, that's one of the questions came up, and especially about, the playground.
Which I can understand.
Keep it, farm-oriented, and anything, in the past, we've looked at it as long as it falls under allowable by ag and markets, which includes nowadays agritourism is kind of moved towards that. So anything that supports farming, selling of products, enjoyment of farms, getting people out, onto the land and to the property is sorted by that. We also have Oak and Apple, which is up on the hill on Dublin Road. That easement had a special caveat for a large building. It was originally slated for a winery. So that easement is slightly different than the others, but again, that's in one of the properties that we have a conservation easement over, which was basically put in place against development of homes and other things not agriculture related.
And would you say that again, Mark, what you said about agritourism? So does the code support that, or there's been changes that now support that?
Ag and Markets
broadly?
supports agritourism, so we basically, in the easement, it says anything that's allowed by Ag and Markets, supported by agriculture, so through extension, we've looked at that as agritourism, meets that intent. I know the Wickham's has their CSA building, went up on the property on the north side of Penfield Center Road. That's in a conservation easement area, but again, ag-supported, ag-related. So, we've defaulted back to Ag and Markets law, and obviously Ag and Markets law has grown over the years. They even allow wineries, breweries, there's other things that, are much more extensive than, what's looked at here.
This is a question not necessarily directly about the easement, Mark, it's probably for you, but with the popularity of some of the things that Evan has put forward at the farm market, parking and pedestrian activity has certainly increased. I realize it's not a town road, but has there ever been any discussions about maybe a designated crosswalk? I know sometimes you have staff.
I've asked,
Yeah.
We are
and I've
currently,
been written back saying no.
well, we're currently looking at it, and then they.
Not you. I'm not.
No, I know.
I've asked Monroe County.
Yes. With the sidewalk project that's slated for this summer, if we now have a sidewalk in a designated location, they said they would then relook at it for that. So right now, there's not really a designated spot to cross, so we'd have to work with.
Technically, you're supposed to
Evan
have,
for it.
what I was told, a sidewalk to a sidewalk.
Yeah.
I am willing to put in a small sidewalk on the other side of the road after the sidewalk comes down.
Stub location, we'd
Yeah.
have to find where
Yeah.
the best spot is. We'd have to look at sight lines, but the county did reply saying, after we put the sidewalk project in, they would look at, a dedicated spot and then, could put in.
And we've
potentially
started
crosswalk.
using county sheriffs for our, not every day, but for specific events. We are now contracting with Monroe County sheriffs to help people cross.
Yeah, I mean, the popularity is a good problem to have, obviously, but having driven through there during some of the events, it does
understand.
become, kids dart out in between cars, it can be a problem. So I'd just like some consideration for pedestrian activity, especially with the sidewalks going in.
Yeah.
Is there any possibility of adding more parking?
So we're running out of land. The town owns the land next to us.
Yes.
That's the only land that's available, or even around.
I see. Okay.
I mean, I put in, Mark was there, but I did put in the 75-car parking lot that is on the east end of the property next to the cider mill.
You did that?
I did that. We also put the parking lot on the UPIC side that holds around 50 cars. And now on the mill side, we literally don't have any more land.
Okay.
I mean, I'm willing to buy land, it's just there's
one over.
no land to buy.
Yeah, I
one to the
understand
right.
what you're saying.
One more over. That one's ours.
Are there other questions?
No?
It's exciting.
So our discussion was if the board is supportive, it wouldn't take a resolution, it would just basically a roll call vote that the board is supportive of it. Obviously, that gives Evan some direction to move forward with, and then we can have him come back at such time that he's got something specific for the board to look at, but just gives him thought and a little understanding before you
Well, I'll move forward.
to
and
expend some money and
will
everything
have-
else to know that.
I mean, contractors would then be contacted and things of that nature. If I know it's a possibility, if I know it's not, then I just need to shift and think about something new and different and go from there to help our business.
Yeah.
Okay, so we'll do a roll call vote.
Yeah, and the question, I guess, would really be supporting the agritourism proposals presented tonight, including the pavilions and possible agricultural themed playground, right?
Wait a
So that
minute,
was
could
clear.
you repeat that? I didn't understand that.
So the agritourism, well, maybe it'd be better if.
Sure.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm looking to install 2 to 3 pavilions, hopefully 3 ultimately. Obviously, costs will determine this. I'm also at some time hoping to build a agriculture-themed playground, a
Right.
natural-themed playground.
I understood what you were saying. I didn't understand what
I'm
you were
sorry.
saying about
You were framing the question, right?
Yeah, for us to vote to move forward.
Right, just to
Yeah,
make it in
okay,
compliance with
that's what
town code.
Right, and can you
And
just
market law.
repeat your formulation of the question? That's-
I don't know.
Real quick question.
I had
Have you
to ask the
considered
hardest
ADA
question,
compliance
right?
for the playground? I know those structures are very unique.
That's a great question. No, I haven't,
Okay.
but it's something that obviously is being brought to my attention now.
Okay, thank you.
So I think it would be appropriate to have a motion that the town board is in support of the agritourism aspects presented tonight, including up to 3 pavilions and an agriculturally themed playground.
Okay,
All right.
okay, I understand it. Yep, thank you.
Do we have a motion to that effect?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Barry?
Aye.
Dean?
Aye.
Getz?
Aye.
Lang?
Aye.
Teglash?
Aye.
All right, thank you.
Thank you guys for your time.
Thank you.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Okay, next we're going to move into our department head updates. And tonight I'm going to start with Andy Erkfitz from Recreation.
Thank you. All right. So the rec department, we're currently working on our summer 2026 brochure, and that season covers June through August, so really just putting together programs and events. That brochure will be finalized in early April, with registration beginning in early to mid-May. Some programs that are offered over the summer, we do offer registration in our winter-spring brochure, our largest one being our upcoming summer camp. And that registration begins next week on March 4th at 10 a.m. for Penfield residents. Some of the changes that we've made since last year to enhance the registration process is we migrated our recreation servers to being hosted by Vermont Systems, who runs and operates our recreation system, so it's on site for them, so better customer support and things like that for IT. We also implemented a new credit card processing system, upgraded transaction hardware internally and also online as well to reduce the amount of stress that's on our processing system as well. And then we're happy to announce that we've increased enrollment numbers comparable to exactly what we had in 2025 for our maximums for summer camp. Previous years, based on staffing and things like that, we usually have to set a realistic goal for enrollment numbers, which then created large wait lists. This year, with the amount of staff that are already saying that they're returning, we're confident that we'll be able to at least get the numbers that we had last year, still with hopes if we can hire more summer camp help to offer more site locations and add enrollment. So hopefully all of this will help registration, waitlist numbers that we've seen over the years with our very, very popular summer camp program. So kudos to our rec team for all the work that they've done over the last year to try and get this stuff together. Some projects updates. We have Penfield Forward Tomorrow's Town Spaces project. I know the first meeting is next Monday, March 2nd at the Community Center. Starts at 5:30. I hope I'm not raining on anyone else's topics or anything. But not just the rec department. I think the whole town is excited to start having these discussions about our town facilities and where we're going in the next 5 to 10 years. So I think from the rec department standpoint and hopefully from the town, these are the fun projects where you get to hear as much community engagement as possible. So can't stress enough that we're pushing it out there, hopefully not too much, but enough that we get as much feedback as possible. I know with our Parks and Rec master plan that we did in 2024, the library's done some things, town comprehensive plan, our communication stuff, just a lot of different ways that the community can provide us feedback to give us knowledge and some guidance moving forward. So excited, at least from the rec center side of things too, for our facility, because as we're planning our summer 2026 brochure, we're already having to turn away so many instructors that want to work with us and offer programs. We just don't have the facility space for them to do it. We work with the school district, we work with a bunch of different organizations in town. We use a lot of our lodges for programs just because that's a need. We'd love to have more space to offer programming if that's a possibility in the future, but excited for the feedback to see where we go.
Some other projects are working on 2026 event and concert planning. Big thing that we're looking at is Independence Day with the 250th celebration for our country this year. We've already had multiple meetings. We're starting to work with different departments really just to come up with as many events and programs that we can highlight working our way up to Independence Day. So more information will come out with that as we finalize those things internally. We also have the Shadow Pines Southside Shared Use Trails Project. We received 3 different RFPs. We reviewed them with town staff, and now we're going to be conducting interviews with the 3 firms. We're hoping in the next month or so to bring back some of the information to town board and present that to you for possible discussion in the future. For staff openings, we are always trying to hire camp staff for summer. I can't stress that enough. We also have aquatic staff. We offer swim programs year-round. Summer, we definitely offer more, so we're always looking for lifeguards, swim and safety instructors. The town rec department does offer certifications and programs for people to get certified to be lifeguards and safety instructors, so definitely check out our brochure. We're usually offering 1 to 2 of those every season. And then budget status, I'm glad I'm talking before Sarah does. I think we're doing really well. Hopefully she doesn't correct me on anything, but it's still early. Trends for programming are consistent, so hopefully, knock on wood, no issues with that.
Okay.
Cool.
Questions for Andy?
Yeah, any luck filling the one position that you needed to backfill for Pam?
We're still discussing it on the town side of things. We know that the town is going through, filling positions.
Okay.
I can't thank our recreation staff enough. I think most of our staff, as well as other town staff, are used to having extra things thrown at them and handling them. So our staff's doing a great job during this kind of transition time for Pam's retirement. But we'll continue to work with the town and with the Human Resources Director and their department just to see what sort of position we can offer out there to best help the rec department.
Okay. One other question. Our ARPA funds purchased a van with accessible with a wheelchair lift. Any utilization of that yet, or still early?
Yes, the rec department has a lot of ideas.
Okay.
This is the first time we've had a van that has wheelchair access now. So it's a great thing to have. We didn't receive it, or it wasn't finalized until late in 2025.
Right.
So we had already planned and finalized our winter brochure, so we'd love to be able to advertise. I think that's the biggest thing, is just to put it out there that we now have that capability. The rec department works really closely and oversees our Bri-Pen driving services. So the town already offers kind of senior rides for doctor's appointments, bringing people to the library and the rec center. Now having wheelchair access through the town, there might be some options that the town can assist with that, with staffing and things like that. So we have a bunch of ideas. We've used the van for a number of trips so far. Nothing specific to, we haven't had any wheelchair requests, but we have utilized it for van trips to Jiva, performing arts, things like that.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, thank you. So please get the word out that we have wheelchair access. Thank you.
Any other questions? All right, thank you, Andy.
Yep, thanks, everybody.
you.
Okay, next I'm going to ask Alan Wrights to come up from Building and Zoning.
Hello, everybody.
Hello.
Hi.
I'll try to keep it short. There's a few things I just wanted to bring to everybody's attention. Just some key things are going on. I think I mentioned last month that we're closing out old permits, so we have been doing that. We've closed out over 50 old permits in the last month, plus everything else we do. So that's been going very well. Maybe we have probably another 50 that are docked for later on to close those out as well. So we're doing well on that. We are still looking for somebody to replace our Clerk 3 soon. I'm thankful that Jordan in HR has helped us send out some letters to canvass our Clerk 3 list for the civil service title, and that went out last week, so hopefully we'll be hearing soon about that. So, and just lastly, probably the more important thing that I wanted to bring up tonight was I kind of focused a little bit more on some other aspects of my department. This time I'm going to focus on the fire side of things. This past month has been a pretty busy month. We've had over 9 calls into service. One of them in particular was a fire over at Penfield Farms. One of the modular homes caught fire at about 4 o'clock in the morning. The fire department responded and were having trouble getting water. They could not hook up to the hydrant. They had to move to another hydrant and then use all the reserve water in their tanks. So that was a major problem brought to my attention. Immediately I talked to the maintenance staff there at Penfield Farms. They were extremely receptive. They had their maintenance staff leader, I guess, or supervisor is actually a lieutenant in the Hamlin Fire Department. So he responded to me. We went out, we looked at the hydrants. We thought that we possibly had some problems with about 6 hydrants in that area. After we coordinated with the chief, we went out and we talked to the staff again. We drove around, we took some connections and put them onto each hydrant. So we narrowed it down to 2 hydrants that we really have some problems with. So the Penfield Farms has been gracious enough to work with us, and they are in the midst of getting some quotes for replacing those 2 hydrants and then doing some maintenance work to all the other ones to make sure that everything's up to snuff. Eventually, their 2-year plan would be to replace the other 4 hydrants that we had thought were potential problems, just to make sure, and then actually add a couple more where needed. So I just wanted to bring that up because it is an important aspect of what my department does and try to keep people safe. So that's all I have.
And you had also said in your report that you were finishing up the disaster plan?
Oh, yes. Yes, we have finished it up actually today.
Okay.
They just started printing it off because I couldn't print anything today because they were printing so many pages of documents. So yeah, so that just got done today, and I think Kathy's putting it into binders probably
Excellent.
tomorrow. So
That's great.
those will be distributed. So.
Any other questions for Alan? All right, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, next I will have Bob Moore from the Department of Public Works come up.
Good evening. So for the departments, for us, we were all on snow all month. Pretty much was it in a nutshell. We had some filling jobs in between the snowfalls, did some tree trimming around town, potholes, mailboxes, and that sort of stuff, minor stuff. They've been just plowing snow. Right now, just to give you an idea, we're cresting the 300-hour mark for overtime for the season, which is about 100 over what's average. The last 5-year average was around 200 to 205, somewhere in there. And we're cresting 300 right now with still probably another 4 weeks left to go of stuff. So the group has put in a ton of time and effort, and can't thank them enough for all the work that they've done. The facilities group, they did finish up almost all the lights in the community center except for a couple of the hangars that we'll do when we get a little bit more time. I think there's only like 4 in there, but other than that, they are done. And then we had a few down trees from the windstorms and the ice that we've had, and they were picking those up. So that's pretty much a nutshell what they've been doing the last month. Other projects, we started on a Clark barn cleanup, getting some of that taken around. Hopefully, if it stops snowing, we can get some more done this week, but probably by middle of next week, we should have that under pretty good wraps. We're cleaning the shop and sorting stuff out for the move to the new building. That's going to take some time. 50, 60 years sitting in that building. We got a lot. We've managed to have a lot of stuff. So we're getting on that. We've been managing a salt shortage. Everybody knows about that's been in the news. The mine has salt, but they're only shipping out what they can produce in a day and then distributing that to the people. Right now, I've got a 1,500-ton order that we just started receiving yesterday that was ordered on February 9th. So I'll be placing another order tomorrow. Hopefully, they'll start shipping that when that one's filled. So that's been an ongoing issue. You know, we've been down to about 200 ton in the barn, which is one round around town. But like I said, we've been fortunate enough, we've been keeping going. Also, with that, all the running we've done, the fleet is taking a beating this year. I'm sure Sarah will tell us how much I've been spending here lately. But we're doing good on that. And we've been meeting with the Monroe County DOT to coordinate some of the upcoming summer work. It's be here before we know it, so coordinate with them. They have a lot of, the roads took a heavy hit this year. There's going to be a lot of work done. So the county's reaching out to the towns, trying to get down to help labor-wise to get that stuff done, which brings revenue in for us, which is good. The staff openings, we have the animal control evening shift that's open. We've got 2 laborers positions in the sewer department. We have a highway laborer, and we're going to have the shop foreman position coming up. As far as the budget goes, our salt budget's been taking a real hard hit, and our overtime budget's taking a real hard hit. So we're managing. We're going to ask for probably more in the salt budget for next year and overtime, just because the trending last year we were over. This year we're going to be over again. Even though we did increase it, we're going to increase it again for next year, and hopefully we'll get that under control. We've got, coming up for the legislate, we've got some more equipment that we've got ordered, or to be ordered for coming up, so we get a couple more trucks coming. The pickup, the electric truck that we got the grant for, we're going to be ordering that once they all pass, so some good stuff on that. And then the other action board, which also be, we interviewed for the electrician, and the gentleman accepted. So that's going to come before you guys next on the legislate also for that. So hopefully we can get him in shortly and get things squared around.
Bob, can you please explain for everyone what it is that you do to compensate for the shortage of salt?
So if we have plenty of salt, we usually go out and it's 100%. So that means we lay salt down the entire stretch of the road. When we go into the conservation mode, we do what's called HCI, which stands for hills, curves, and intersections. So the straightaway roads, we back it right off, and we only apply it at the curve or at a hill or at an intersection. And that saves us almost half on a route when we do it that way. We've cut back on the amount of pounds per lane mile. Normally, you go out, you're 200 pounds per lane mile. So for 5,280 feet, you're putting down 200 pounds of salt. It's roughly 3 5-gallon pails. It's not a lot as it is, but it does work. And we've also had a deal where even if it's anything over a half-inch of snow, we've been scraping. And the reason for that is you use less material when you scrape it because you're down to 1/8 of an inch that you're leaving on the road. The salt works a lot faster with a lot less. So even though the phone's been blowing up, why you guys out there scraping on a bare road? Well, yeah, it might be bare in front of your house, but we got covered down the road, and there's nothing coming off the plow. It goes into a dust, and it's hard to see it, but that's how we save the salt. And that's about the only thing we can do.
Other questions for Bob?
With the overtime budget, I think last year's it was over budget. This year, obviously, it's going to be, well, I understand like the extraordinary circumstances. Has there been any discussion about looking at staffing and potentially seeing if we can maybe do a little bit more with a little bit less overtime?
Depends on how you want to do that. We've tried shift work in the past. We don't have enough staffing to do it, where we're not burning the guys out. We need 18 to do a full clean in a town. We have 23 there right now. So if we have to call everybody in, that only leaves you 5 people on a night shift. Well, on the night, we're doing a 9 truck. So now we'd be pulling 4 people off the morning to run the night. And it really burned the people out fast. Now, depending on how things go in the future, with other things that may come up where we need more staffing, that would justify summertime use as well as winter, we could probably do a shift work, which would cut down on the overtime.
Yeah, I was more alluding to the fact that, are you short-staffed, I guess, at this point? The overtime would indicate there's a deficiency somewhere.
Yes, we are. We could go with more people. We definitely could use that. The fact of the matter is the way the union contract is stated, we have 18 route drivers right now. So those 18 are being called in for all your snow removal. The other 5 are being called in for parking lots, doorways, and sidewalks on that rotation to help fill out that end of it. And then as a route becomes available, then they move up and, into that end of it. And we could do, but they would have to be signed, because each of those 18 are signed their truck. They maintain it, they take care of it and all that. We would have to sign the other 5, a spare truck. And they're spare for a reason. They're not as reliable as the mainline ones. So yes, as we're getting these trucks in, our spares are going to definitely be upgraded. We can do a little bit more on that and start to try to utilize them 5. But when we take those 5, now we're short staffing the doorway, parking lot, that group. So they would need to have more staffing as well. So it's gonna, how many people are we gonna take to balance that out, in the overtime scheme of things? What's it gonna be, 3, maybe 4 full-time people is what in the money by the time you're said and done? That, I don't know if that's gonna be enough or it'd be worthwhile on the overtime savings.
Yeah, I guess it's not a question that needs to be answered right now, but as we go through the budget, I'd like to see, because I'm not comfortable just saying, well, we're going to spend more on overtime next year just because we always have. It's.
Right. Yeah, Bill, I'm not super comfortable with that either. I actually had on my report that one of the things that, that I had sort of on my list was to work with the new director of HR to kind of evaluate overtime, not just for the highway department,
Sure.
but for all of the departments that use overtime, to see where the deficiencies might be, if there are any, or what other things could be done to reduce the overtime. So that's on the list, absolutely.
I didn't mean to steal your thunder then.
That's okay.
Are there other questions for Bob? All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks to your crew for logging all that time.
Definitely. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's been relentless.
Yeah, I had a chance to spend some time with that crew the other day, and they're a great group of people, and they're hard workers for sure.
Yeah.
For sure. All right, Sarah, do you want to give the financial report?
Okay. All right. Okay, so the key activity of the first quarter for finance, the first quarter of the year is always audit. For the 2025 audit, we have most of our expenses posted. I say most because just today we received 2 invoices that were previously unknown to us, and there still could be a few others out there. Last year, we received a 2024 Genie invoice in mid-March for the previous year, and a few more invoices in April and May. But at some point, we have to draw the line, and we have to roll over encumbrances and kind of get on with it. So I can still accrue expenses for 2025 if there are funds available after we roll over. But if we can minimize the number of journal entries that we do after the trial balance has been given to our auditors, the better it is. So that's that's sort of the goal. So now that we're kind of moving on from expenses, I'm looking at December cash accounts to ensure that they reconcile to the bank statements. I'm reconciling revenue to make sure that we've picked up anything that we need to pick up, accrue, defer, and also looking at liability accounts as well. And then the last kind of step is budget transfers and any additional appropriations to make everything whole. So in the March 4th legislative session, there will be a resolution for budget transfers as well as some additional appropriations, although we did a great big one last meeting, so this one I'm anticipating will be a little smaller for the additional appropriations. It'll be mostly budget transfers, which are neutral. So it's not an additional spend, it's just moving money from one line to another. Other projects in the finance department, I'd like to finish and update a multi-year plan that I started in 2025 for the general fund, highway fund, library fund, and sewer fund. And basically, the multi-year plan or multi-year projection looks at 4 previous years, a current year estimate, and then projects out anywhere from 5 to 10 years. I think 10's a little extreme. I think a lot can happen in 10 years. I feel a little bit more comfortable and confident with 5, but we'll see how it goes. That, of course, involves a great many number of assumptions, assumptions about staffing, about equipment needs. So it takes time to put something like that together. But it's in progress, so I'd like to pick that up again once audit is complete. For the past 2 years, we have budgeted to use some fund balance to bridge shortfalls between revenues and expense. That's a perfectly acceptable practice, according to New York State Office of the State Comptroller, but it's not preferable. Right, so I mean, we can do it. It's a-okay with them, but ideally, any fund balance you would want to use towards capital projects, like the Clark House. let's see, so, sorry, I lost my spot. But also having this multi-year plan, it'll inform and allow the board to make educated decisions about fund balance and how to use fund balance in relation to taxes levied and other revenues to support the expenses that we anticipate. And most importantly, it will help inform the 2027 budget process. So budget, speaking of budget, budget is the key activity for the second and third quarter of the year. I typically start in late April. I did start last year in late April with GL account lines that don't require department head input. So, for example, it would be like debt service payments that are determined by amortization schedules. And so in May, the town board and the department heads receive a formal call to budget with a calendar and worksheets. The town board will also receive that calendar, as well as any additional work sessions as determined by the supervisor. And as I mentioned a few minutes ago, another project that I'd like to look at is with the new HR director evaluating the overtime expense. I think some overtime is anticipated. We certainly budget for it for snow plowing. Some may be unavoidable and caused by staffing shortages, and so therefore it is offset by those already budgeted positions that are vacant. And some may not be avoidable. So it may all be unavoidable, but I think it's worth a look, and I think that cost control is critical to both our current actuals as well as budgets. As for the 2026 budget status, encumbrances, we had planned to roll them over today. There was a little bit of a software hiccup. And so, but we are hoping to resolve that tomorrow morning. So your next financial update should have an updated amended budget that includes those encumbrances, along with any other approved 2020 budget amendments. I will also be able to, after that's rolled over, be able to provide staff with 2026 budget to actuals in our monthly staff meetings. They do have, like, they can log into the software, they can see their budgets and where they are at currently, but it doesn't necessarily have the correct year forward balances. It has year forward balances from a month ago. So now we have more expenses, so we will do another year forward to correct that. And I'd like to also add some useful key performance indicators to the monthly report. For example, I think it's really important to know that the taxes levied constitute 23% of the budgeted appropriations. What that means is that 77% of budgeted appropriations are offset by other revenues. So, for example, sales tax distributions. That's 68. Those other revenues are 68%, and then fund balance is about 9%. As we progress through the year, those numbers change. So we budget conservatively for sales tax revenues and interest income. So depending on how much revenue we bring in and how expenses are trending, we may use more or less fund balance. Preferably less, as I said, because we'd like to be able to use fund balance for really cool projects like the Clerk House. And then any ideas, issues, or board actions needed. I've been in very preliminary exploratory conversations with a fleet management company. They are estimating a savings of $750,000 to $1 million over 10 years. Again, it's kind of a cost control idea. It doesn't take into account some expenses that would be incurred, such as additional audit expenses for GASB compliance or right-of-use lease schedules. Conversely, there might be some areas where we might see additional savings or opportunity cost benefits, such as redirecting resources, like labor, redirection of labor, rather than spending money on managing the fleet. So the next steps would be to have their representative meet with DPW Director Moore and possibly Supervisor Berry to review their proposal and see what they think, see if it makes sense. I will note that adjacent municipalities are using these fleet management services, so we could reach out to them as well to get some feedback and see how it's working for them. 2 other items, and then I'm done. We have a small historical cash asset account of a little more than $5,800. It was originally intended for the maintenance of the Hay Green Cemetery. There is a corresponding cemetery liability account that has a credit balance of $13,700 approximately dollars, which is all interest dating back to 2010, which is as far as the current software goes. So it looks as though at some point prior to 2010, about $7,700 in cash was spent on the town to maintain this cemetery, but they expensed the services rather than reducing the liability. So that's why you have a liability of $13,700 and you have cash of $5,800, because clearly an entry wasn't made. Over the past 16 years, I would think that we've probably spent those remaining funds several times over. So I would like approval to transfer those funds to the general fund, zero out the liability lines, and close the Hay Green savings account. Bonadio concurred. We'd like to clean it up, so I will be submitting a resolution for that. And then lastly, I'd like to eliminate the money market account at M&T. So I believe the M&T money market account predates our investment accounts with New York Class. That was our vehicle for investment before New York Class. Now it functions as a pass-through. So basically, we hold funds in New York Class and withdraw as needed for operations. New York Class has a higher rate of return on interest than the money market account historically and currently. So we withdraw those funds. They go into the money market account, then they go from the money market account to the operating or capital accounts. So it really just passes through. And so that's the only function that it serves, and we can actually transfer directly from New York Class to those accounts. So it's like another level of complication and another account that has to be reconciled monthly and at year end. And with a small finance department, the more that we can streamline and create efficiencies, the cleaner everything will be. And so I would like to close the M&T money market account, and I will be submitting a resolution for that as well. And that is it. Any questions?
Well, I'll note that we met with M&T.
Yes.
And they were in agreement with that idea.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
I did want to ask, what vehicles would be excluded from a possible fleet management contract?
So the proposal excludes the bigger trucks, the plows, although he did clarify for me today that it's excluded from the proposal because the way that they sort of build their spreadsheet and their proposal and come up with the numbers for savings, it doesn't sort of allow for the kind of maintenance and repairs that those trucks, because they have a longer lifespan. The proposal is more a shorter lifespan for like the smaller pickup trucks and the cars, but they can actually maintain the bigger trucks as well.
Other questions for Sarah?
That fleet management program, those are leases?
They are leases.
I think they're making the rounds around the county at this point, because I've sat through a presentation, too.
Yeah.
On the budget, you mentioned in the revenues line, about 9% of the budget is pulling from general fund to balance it?
From fund balance,
And you said
correct.
that's been going on for the last couple of years?
Well, no, that's this year's.
Okay.
So it was a bigger number this year. It's not 9% every year, so
And
clarification.
What's the approximate balance of our general fund at this point?
Complicated question. It's about, well, we're at about 35 million, but I want to caution that the fund balance it's made up of different, it's broken up, right? So you have assigned fund balance, you have unassigned fund balance, you have reserves. So while it's 35 million, we also have a piece of that is from the bond for the DPW facility as well. So about 10 million remains in the fund balance, and that is for the DPW facility. So that's all funds combined.
Other questions?
Talking about the fleet management. Bill mentioned that they would be leases. Are they true leases, or are they like you lease it and then at the end you pay $1 and you own it?
No, they're true leases. So you lease the vehicles, and then they cycle them out for you, essentially. So after 5 years, the vehicle is sold and you get a new vehicle.
Okay, I just want to make sure that we're not, because sometimes I find that these people will come around and market a lease, but it's really an installment purchase agreement that is all these other pieces of red tape for municipalities, so,
Right.
okay.
If it's the same company, a police department you're probably familiar with is going to utilize them, I believe, and it's like 3 or 5 year terms, and at the end of it, you would cycle to a new vehicle, and
okay.
they take possession of it.
Correct.
And they can sell it or do whatever with it. I think you do have an option to buy it at the end for a specific, just like a regular
Right.
lease.
Okay. Would you have to go out? Is this the only game in town, or do you have to go out to RFP?
That's a really good question. It's the only game in town that I'm aware of. That doesn't mean that there aren't other organizations out there.
Okay.
Any other questions for Sarah?
Again, it's very, very, very preliminary.
All right, thank you, Sarah.
Sure.
Okay, next I will go to Mark Valentine from what is internally known as planning and engineering.
Thank you. So we had a great event last night. We had an active transportation meeting at the community center. We had a good turnout with that. A lot of the community came out, provided their feedback, had boards around the room, lots of people going through, looking at it, have a lot of good discussion. We will have those boards available, as well as opportunities still on the website. So if anybody hasn't or wasn't able to go last night, we have QR codes around the town hall, the community center. People can go in, please take the survey, please provide feedback, let us know your thoughts, areas we can look at improving our connectivity, bike, pedestrian, around the community. So please, continue to move ahead on that. Our climate action plan has started. So we had our kickoff meeting with our internal group. That is part of the Phase 1 of the Climate Action Plan. So this is kind of an assessment of our internal usage, so vehicle usage, buildings, energy. So we're working with that group to gather our data right now and kind of look at, what our environmental impact is and what our usage is of power. The engineering department is working on the annual report for the MS4, so that is due April 1st. So that's a document every year we have to submit to the DEC that shows what we've done or completed in the past year. So there is a new permit out right now. We've just completed the end of year 2, so there are certain items we need to complete each year. We will be sharing that with the Watershed Committee next week, so going through that with that group, sharing with them, where we are in the report, what we've got to submit. With that group, and then looking to submit that by April 1st, and then we'll start into the year 3 items with that. We are starting to see an uptick in the planning side. We have 4 new applications for March, so starting to see more new applications roll in. Thank you to the board. We have some new planning board members. So tomorrow night, Doug Sangster and the planning group will, I think we have 1 application on. So since it's a light agenda, use the rest of the meeting to do some initial training for the new board members and a refresher for others. There's a state requirement for 4 hours of training throughout the year, so they maybe get an hour and a half in of training right off the bat. So it's good to kind of get them in and up to speed ahead of those March applications coming in. And I think I shared with the board in my monthly report, we've got some projects completing their approval process, and as of today, we had a pre-construction meeting for the Chick-fil-A project. So for the board and the community, you may see some activity in the coming weeks over at that site, demo of the existing building, and then transitioning into obviously the construction of that new building. They also have their permits for this new traffic light. So you'll see that come into place, and that will be up and operational before the building is open and functional for the restaurant use. So I have no staff openings. Our budget is on track to date, so I think we're good on that end.
Are there questions for Mark?
Mark, did they tell you approximately how long the demo would take?
They didn't share the demo. They're looking, I think March 9th was their start date for that. I think they thought a week or 2 for that, and then they had a slated, spring through summer. I think opening in late summer, early fall was kind of their target date for that.
Gotcha.
Do they expect any impact to the entry and exit?
They don't. They said, and that was something we focused on. We
Right.
said, obviously, we've got a park behind it. We've got an active plaza, with other owners, businesses right there, as well as residential homes to the north. So we made it very clear to them that they need to keep that entrance open, need to, not block anybody else, have impacts. They've worked with the state, so while they're doing improvements in the state right away, at that point in time, there will be some traffic control plan as they put the lights up and everything else, but there's no plan to, have any stop traffic or have the entrance closed.
And they have committed that the light will go in prior to the opening of the
Yep.
restaurant?
Oh, yes. Yep.
Okay.
That's the requirement of the planning board as well as the state
Okay,
DOT.
good.
So just to clarify, it has to be up before the project is finished, or it has to go up before the project gets, they break ground on the project?
No, before they open their doors.
Okay.
So before they get their C of O and open for business, I think they said they would look, typically it's like 4 weeks, they'll have the light up and it'll be in a flashing mode even before, so people kind of get used to that there's a light there.
Okay, yeah.
It'll just be flashing, then they'll transition into it functioning as a full-on traffic light, and then, make sure that's functional and operational before, they open their doors.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions for Mark? Okay, so I'll move on to Carrie Ivers from Development.
Thank you. Since our Alpheus Clark House was mentioned several times, I'll just update with that. Progress on that project continues to move along very nicely. Bathrooms are being tiled. Flooring is slated to start in the coming weeks. Work on the interior finishes is continuing, and things are moving along at a very nice pace. The project's really coming along nicely. LaSalle's Landing. We had the pre-construction meeting with everyone. We have the DEC permit in hand, and so early April is our anticipated start date for that project. We have made sure that they are aware that that is an active park, and it continues to be operational during their construction phase, so they're cognizant of that, and it will not impact park goers' use of the facilities while construction's happening. The work continues with Penfield Business Chamber. There are going to be a couple of new grand opening celebrations scheduled for April. I think a lot of folks that are open want to wait until this weather is done to stand outside with big scissors and ribbon. And so we'll be getting those on everyone's calendar as dates are confirmed. I also share, it seems early, but Penfield Business Chamber is about to kick off their internal group planning for PenFest, which is they do sort of this festival style way to promote area businesses. There's booths and kids activities. This will be the second year that it's being held at Harris Whalen. It's on Friday, May 29th, which seems so far away, but it will be here in a minute. So figured I'd put it out there. Trying to think of my other updates. I printed out the wrong thing and not my notes. We are continuing to do some work on, there are some potential local laws that we're going to be talking about in a moment, so we're continuing work on that. We don't have any, there's no staff openings. Budget is A-okay, and I think that's all I have for now.
Okay, great. All right, so that concludes our department head updates. And if you guys want to go home, feel free. You've been, all our department heads are still here, so.
Good job.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
So now we'll move on to action items. And the first one, I will turn over to Mark Valentine regarding the local law and the FEMA map.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Supervisor. So this is kind of more of a formality. Carrie's pulling up the map. So this is called a LOMAR, so Letter of Map Revision. The vast majority of it is in the town of Webster. You see the yellow line at the bottom. The little bit of piece of floodplain on our side is the piece that's slightly modifying. And I say it's not adding new. So they're doing some work in Webster. It made a slight revision to the floodplain map. So it is required by us through local law to adopt this new map. It's basically you adopt the map or you don't have flood insurance. So it's not really a discussion debate, but you can see the vast majority, and again, this map isn't showing that this was floodplain before, so it's not creating new floodplain. It's just a slight modification to it based on a small project in Webster. So they're just looking for us to adopt it, so we've got to adopt that through local law, and I think the supervisor has shared that out with everyone.
Or we'll be sharing
Or
it out.
we'll be sharing it out with everyone after this, excuse me.
So my question was on trying to understand the map and residents who are impacted by this change. Do we have Penfield residents who are, and how are they being notified?
I mean, I think it's changing by virtual tenths of a foot or hundredths of a foot, so there is
But
not.
so it's not as if we have residents who were okay and now are in a floodplain?
Correct. They were in a floodplain yesterday. They're still in a floodplain today. It's changing by hundredths of, what that is. So south of, or looking below that yellow line is where the town of Penfield starts. That's Seabury Boulevard. So the people were in the floodplain. We're not adding any, or no new people are going into the floodplain that weren't previously. It's just a minor tweak of the line as it goes through. The vast majority of, of that is all in the town of Webster. But since it is revising it all, we're required by law to adopt, this new map.
We have to add the map to the town code. I will point out that during this local law, since this update is required, one of the other things that we failed to correct the last time we had to update this section of the town code is to reconcile the look-back period to match what the state require, or state and federal guidelines require. Our local flood damage prevention regulations don't align with the year look back, and so we'd like to take this opportunity to bring them into alliance with the FEMA requirements.
So that look back period, just to piggyback on that, that's so anybody, if you're developing in a floodplain, you've got to do a look back, a period of time of what your cost of improvements are to that. Once you go over 50% of the structure's cost, then you've got to look at floodproofing the building, getting out of the floodplain. So we're just making sure, again, that we're in compliance with the state statute for that.
So what we don't really need any action. I think we wanted just to let you know this is going to be happening or that an action was required.
Okay.
A proposed local law will be prepared and provided to Kevin so he can introduce it formally
And then set the public hearing.
and set the public hearing for April.
Any questions on that?
Yeah, so when the public hearing is, so there won't be a group that needs to be notified specifically for the public hearing. It'll be a general broadcast,
It
correct?
will. What I would say, since we are, for public information purposes, the town of Penfield does have a public GIS viewer map. And this is an interactive map that allows you to turn features, map layers on and off. And so if anybody's curious about whether or not their property is or may be in a floodplain or partially in a floodplain or in a floodway or in any other category that could have a wetland, although DEC has done away with wetlands mapping. But there's maps available on our town website. And if anybody ever cannot find it or isn't sure, to send an email to planning@penfieldny.gov, and we will send a direct link.
Right, and if they just go to the town website and search Penfield GIS map, it comes
Yes,
up.
it'll
It is a
pop up.
great map to
Yes, and you
use.
really can see everything, the zoning, you can see anything that might apply to your property.
Right.
And I always encourage anyone who is either owns property or is looking to buy property to check those maps.
And these floodplain maps are generated by FEMA, so they
Yes.
come from the federal government. They're not
Ours.
ours. Penfield's not deciding who's in and out of a floodplain. These are coming from FEMA themselves.
Very important to remind.
Yeah.
We just provide the mapping, we don't control what's on it.
Anything further on that? All right, so now we will move on to the topic of the introduction of local laws via email, and that'll be with Carrie Ivers.
Yes, thank you. So the New York State town law provides the ability for proposed local laws to be introduced via email and also for final versions of proposed local laws to be circulated via email. However, it does require the town board to adopt a resolution authorizing that and allow that. And so what I would ask is if this is something that you would like to implement, then I would prepare the resolution to authorize that provisions, allowing use of email to both circulate a proposed local law and then to also share the final form of a proposed local law before it's ready to be voted on by a legislative body.
So when you say circulate it, can you explain for the group what you're referring to?
Yeah, so it would require that email communication be used to the town board's town email addresses. The New York State law also requires that those email addresses are available publicly and posted on a bulletin board. So I would work with the town clerk's office to make sure that there is a posting somewhere on the town clerk's board that has each individual town board and their town board email address. And so in the town law, it just specifies that in order to utilize email as a form of communication related to local laws, that there has to be a resolution adopted.
In the packet, or in the folder, there's a copy of the provision that's at issue. It's actually Section 20 of the Municipal Home Rule Law. And I recommend that you do it. It's got to be adopted unanimously, and I recommend that you would have this be one of your resolutions that you do at every organizational meeting so that it gives you a little bit greater flexibility. The default would be that whenever you're going to introduce a local law, it would have to be on the desks of the legislators or delivered by, I think, first-class mail. So it just gives you the way that we're going to do it. You know, this is the way that everybody wants to do it anyway. So, but there's a couple of steps, and I just want to make sure that we're dotting our i's and crossing our t's
Yeah.
on this.
I was going to ask, excuse me. Okay. The advantage of it, and you just answered the question before I was able to ask it, as to what would be the purpose of doing it one way over the other.
So I think a lot of towns do this way and don't really pay attention to whether or not the letter of the law has been followed.
Yeah.
And so I don't want to leave any low-hanging fruit for
Right.
somebody to challenge one of our enactments. So I think we should do this, and I think it should be part of our routine every organizational meeting so that, this is something that we can do and nobody's going to question it.
Okay.
And
Thank
we
you.
have to, it was very specific about it has to be before the final resolution. It has to be 10 days prior in our email.
It has to be in your email. That's before you take action on it.
Right, the final
version.
that I got.
And I think
So
they
we would just have to
exclude,
make
like,
sure we're
Sundays or
tracking that
something.
Yes.
carefully.
Yeah, we,
Trust me.
Carrie and I make sure that we do that.
A lot of calendars, and it excludes Sundays. So
I saw that.
Yeah, I saw
They were
that,
very
right.
generous to let you count 7.
Unfortunately, so leaving it on the desks, you get 7 days excluding Sundays. But, this it's just like when you mail it,
Right.
but it's still easier to do it that way.
And it is something that we'd want to review and approve every
Absolutely,
organizational meeting. Okay.
absolutely.
It just
I mean,
makes it clear as well that that's the policy as prescribed, because the introduction of the local law is typically prescribed. It says it has to be introduced by a member of the legislative body at a meeting of such body, or as may be otherwise prescribed by the rules of procedure adopted by the legislative body. So the introduction by local law, or of the proposed local law, just needs to be documented by this board.
I'm trying to challenge that in another town on behalf of a client, so I wouldn't want anybody to use that against me. So,
Learning lessons from other places.
yeah.
Any other questions on that topic?
Do you need anything from us to
Well,
write the resolution?
Just to authorize me to prepare
right.
the resolution.
I would make a motion that we authorize Carrie to prepare the resolution for us to vote on.
I'll second it.
Barry?
Aye.
Dean?
Aye.
Getz?
Aye.
Blaine?
Aye.
And Teglash?
Aye.
Okay. Next, we will move on to emergency video conferencing ability for members of the legal boards, and that's also Carrie Iverson.
Yeah, so this is something that other towns have moved forward on and have adopted a local law to allow the use of video conferencing by a town public body that's typically a legal board in cases of emergency. And in some instances, the towns have embedded into their town code the details and the process and procedure of what details an emergency and how and when the process needs to be followed. And other communities have just simply said video conferencing is permitted in accordance with the policy that's adopted by the town board by resolution. There's both options would exist or be available to the town board. I think there's a lot of value where, say, for example, a town board member has I'm wishing none of this upon you. Let me say that first. I'm wishing none of this upon you. But in the event that you had an emergency, you had to care for a family member, or you had to, you broke a leg, you feel fine but can't hobble your way into town hall the same day, and there's a meeting. You feel fine, but you have COVID, but you don't want to come in and share be contagious. This would allow, under emergency circumstances, for you to participate as a board member voting via video through Zoom, or in the Town of Penfield's case, it would be Zoom, and so that you're participating in the meeting. And there's some parameters around how and when that would apply. And so wanted to bring this up as an idea to see whether or not this is something that the town board is interested in pursuing. It ensures either quorums can be maintained, and also ensures that a full slate of a board, the full slate is represented at the town meetings as often as possible. Just wanted to, and so if this is something that the town was interested in, then we'd be preparing a local law for Kevin again to introduce to all of you.
And my understanding is that this is just for emergencies. There's certain things that are precluded, such as being on vacation, things like that.
Correct, and that, yeah, certainly, that's something that the town board would determine through the policy. So I'm just going to, I'll pull it up just in terms of draft form, that it indicates the use of video conferencing, and let me zoom that in so that that video conferencing technology can be utilized in a manner consistent with the town's video conferencing policy adopted by the town board and on file with the Penfield town clerk. That's a video, so that separate policy would be something that you adopt. I would recommend it gets adopted annually at the organizational meeting, similar to what we just described for the local law introduction via email, just to solidify on an annual basis. The benefit for doing it this way is that if something were to change that required you to revisit either the process or the procedure, even the definition of what a public emergency is, say something new arises, if you wanted to change it and it's embedded in the code, you have to go through a local law process to update that policy. Having it included by reference only would allow you to enact a change in the policy by resolution. So it just gives you more flexibility to respond or react to changes that we can't predict. And I think, COVID being a great example of that. No one knew that COVID was going to be a thing until it was a thing. And so, and at that time, the town boards were allowed to act via video conference because there was a state of emergency declared by New York State allowing that to happen. At some period of time, that went away. And so now, in order for towns to be in compliance with open meetings law, they have to adopt a resolution locally to allow video conferencing.
Actually, not a resolution, a local law.
Forgive me.
So, video conferencing has always been allowed under the open meetings law. However, it was practically impossible to use the way it was originally conceived because members of the public had to be able to be present at either place where the video conference is happening. And so that doesn't make any sense. So after COVID, everybody realizes, oh, this can work. And so the legislature amended the open meetings law at section 103-A that allows for video conferencing. And it has some criteria that you have to meet, and you have to adopt a local law, and you have to have a policy, and the policy has to be available on the website, so on and so forth. I 100% agree with Carrie that have the minimum that you need in the local law and have the policy be separate so it's easier to change. The policy that we have that's been that Carrie put together includes things that are authorized by the statute. For example, it defines you're only allowed to do it in extraordinary circumstances, and that's defined, which is disability, illness, caregiving responsibilities, or other significant or unexpected factor or event which precludes the member's physical attendance at a meeting. So that's, it's not for vacations or things like that. And it allows for, that member to participate when otherwise, let's say you were sick, you had a disability, you're home, you could watch the meeting, but you can't vote, you can't participate in any way. This way allows you to participate and vote. And all of the other provisions in the policy are really pulled from the statute. So I think you should adopt this, and then you've got it on the books in case you need it at some later point.
Yeah.
But, there's no urgent need to do it today.
All right. Could I say that within the policy, I think there should be a process of how this would work? They would notify the presiding chairperson or the supervisor, so that we have a way that we know that we're documenting it, so that they would have to notify them, it would have to be approved. And is Dave's team set to do this?
Dave Renner shared with him just the draft, just saying this was going to be on the agenda.
Okay.
So
that he'd need some time to.
Yeah.
So he has some concerns, and I tweaked some of the language in the policy earlier today. Everybody needs to understand that you can't say 10 minutes before the meeting, I want to appear.
Right.
Because it's not just a flip of the switch. There's all this other stuff going on too.
Right.
So,
Right.
as much advance notice as you could give. One of the requirements actually in the statute is, I believe you're supposed to provide notice, in the required notice, that it will be happening by video conference. So,
Or that somebody will be participating
right.
via video conference.
so, that suggests that you really, it's to the extent practicable, you really should be given as much notice as
Right,
possible.
and
But-
if it's at short notice, you just need to skip the meeting likely, or just watch. Just out of curiosity, why Zoom and not using our office Teams?
The technology in this room, my understanding with the board, works better with Zoom
Zoom?
than it does with
Okay.
Teams. And certainly someone from PCTV should jump in and correct me from downstairs if that's not.
We've tried some others, and for whatever reason, it doesn't.
Interesting.
For these,
Hasn't played nice.
as a practical matter, Zoom is a better platform
Yeah.
for me. In my other world, I'm doing Zoom over Teams a lot more. The courts use
Interesting.
Teams
Yeah.
more. Teams doesn't work as well.
Hmm.
And to your point, Peter, because my concern was the notice issue too. And so the question is, are you aware of any preferred policy that the state has recommended for time?
No, but I read the statute today, and it did say something about, at some point, the Committee on Open Government is supposed to release some additional information about how to implement this, and I didn't check to see if they've done that, but enough time has passed that that probably does exist, so we'll look at that.
We can take a look at that. We'll work between Pete and PCTV, and we'll make sure that the policy is as thorough as possible.
And so the important thing is to make sure that our local law is in compliance with the open meetings law, and then we have a little more time to kind of think about a standard operating procedure and how do we notify PCTV and, all those types of things. We have a little more time to kind of work through those.
The question I have has to do with, an emergency usually catches you by surprise. The very nature of an emergency. So if this would be used in the case of an emergency, but then you have to give so much notice,
Right.
how do you balance that? Should that somehow be put into the policy about, discretion or, I don't know what word would be right?
So it's not necessarily emergency, it's, the language is extraordinary.
Circumstances.
Okay.
So
Okay.
it's more,
Yeah,
it covers situations where you probably are going to have some time, like if you have surgery scheduled or
Right,
something.
a scheduled surgery or, scheduled.
If you're caregiving.
Caregiving,
It's
yeah.
probably going to be used rarely, knock on wood.
Yeah,
But,
right. Right.
we know from past experience and dealing with it during COVID that it works, and if we can have it all kind of ready to go, if we need to take it off the shelf and dust it off and put it into play.
I think it's better to dust something off than it is to create something,
This gives Dave and his team the chance to kind of think through some of the, game planning for what we might need. Like, what is the minimum amount of time, for example, to
Right.
flip the switch?
Right. And then keeping in mind extraordinary versus emergency, because that's a good clarification on that. The other thing is this would not affect public participation, from what I understood.
In fact, one of the requirements is that you're supposed to allow for the public to participate in the same way they would participate if it was an in-person meeting. And we already do that. So
Right.
it would be broadcast. We'd have to broadcast it here so that people here can see, because everybody has to be on screen. And, they could submit telephone, email comments. All that is already in place.
We have to have the quorum on site. We have to have.
That is a requirement, I
Yes.
believe.
Yeah, okay.
We're hoping we never have to use this like insurance. You never want to.
Like, I could see where it would be, like, let's say it was something important and maybe the supervisor who's, wants to be there and run the meeting. I don't know. It seems like that's like a time when you might want to use it, although, typically the deputy would run the meeting, but something, some extraordinary situation, obviously.
Out of town for a funeral.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Those things that happen.
Yeah.
Okay, so what do we do?
No specific, again, because this will require a local law, we'll work on preparing that, and Kevin can introduce that at an upcoming meeting.
Okay.
Okay, so then we'll move on. All right, next is informational items. I wanted to speak briefly about the town communications survey. The survey is still open until March 1st, and I want to encourage all town residents and people affiliated with the town to please complete the survey. It is very simple to do. It's relatively short, but what it does is it addresses people's feelings on the clarity of the communication from the town, the timeliness, the transparency of communication by the town, how people receive info, how they want to receive info, what they would like to see more often regarding communication, what topics are most important to them. So again, this will go until March 1st, so please fill it out. And that's it for informational items, unless anyone else has anything. Okay. There are no held items. There's no old business, no new business. Our next work session meeting will be March 18th, 2026. And I am going to go ahead and adjourn the meeting at 8:01.